Welcome to the Yoga Nation, the Spirit of Gratitude podcast on the One Integration platform. Hello, friends. My name is Yogesh Patel, and this podcast focuses on bullying, self-awareness, and our inner spirit, inviting high-profile guests to share their experiences on these topics. And my next guest is Mychal, the internet's most beloved librarian with 2 million followers across all social media platforms, spreading his message of having a library card, which is what I have here, along with his very strong advocacy of literacy and mental health. With his infectious personality, which you will find out here in a moment, Mychal has a master's degree in library science and has graced the covers of Time Magazine's Next Leaders Edition. Quite impressive. With gratitude, welcome to the podcast, Mychal.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited for this. I always love talking about library, literacy, and mental health, and so much more.
Absolutely. Well, let's get started. What was your inspiration and passion around libraries in the first place?
You know what it is? I think I've always loved libraries since I was a kid. I started going to the library with my mom and my siblings when I was 3 years old, and then got my first library card at the age of 5. And I think I've just been hooked ever since. The Pizza Hut Book It Challenge, the summer reading challenges, reading as many books as I could to earn that free book prize. Just loving characters like Junie B. Jones, Henry Huggins, Ralph S. Mouse. The Wayside School Kids, Chronicles of Narnia, But Not Buddies, so many more books.
What's the appeal, though? There has to be some sort of connection with you internally. What is that spirit like in you?
No, what I've just described is a connection. I'm 34 years old. I've been in libraries ever since I was a kid. I was homeschooled, so I was in libraries almost every single day, if not every single day, every single week, because that's where my mom took us to get our curriculum. So the library has always been a part of my life. That's a connection. Is struggling as a kid, it was just hard to be myself, hard to feel like I love myself. And the library is where I felt like I belonged, where I felt safe, where I felt like, yes, this is the place that's for me. And it was my local library.
How do you think that's changed over time in terms of the way libraries are hopefully an integral part in a school or in a community? What have you seen?
You know what? A lot has changed. I think I still meet so many people who wonder, like, are libraries relevant today, in the digital age? Like, isn't everything going online? Isn't it fully digital? And it's like, yes, a lot of a lot of things are, but libraries are actually we're moving forward with the times. We're always going to be about books. We're always going to push books, literacy on everybody. But we've added collections like video games, like musical instruments, like board games, see the new libraries. So there really is something for everyone. So even though things are changing, even though, yes, there's ebooks, now there's audiobooks. It's not just books that you can feel in your hands. More and more, we're trying to do something for everybody. And oftentimes people don't realize how many people are not literate when it comes to computers. They don't know how to use a mouse. They don't know how to type. They don't know how to use a keyboard. Many people who come into libraries have no idea how to do those things. And the library is still that place where they come to learn, where they come to check their emails. They don't have Wi-Fi. They don't have computers of their own. So even with all these changes, the world has not changed that much. People have not been able to afford the changes that technology and the digital world has done. So libraries are still like, yes, we have all these new things. We're going above and beyond to include everyone. But for those of you who are still left behind with the changes, we're still here to support you just as we've always been.
Well, it looks like a library is a place where there's that foundation of that joy of learning.
Yes, lifelong learning.
Yeah, and I've always believed that, with a book, right, you can see it, smell it, touch it, feel it. And I guess it also, what you just shared reminds me of, I'm not sure if you've heard of an author, James Baldwin.
I have, absolutely. Oh yeah, legend.
Yeah, so back in the day when I was in grade school and middle school and high school, and he talked about, how he got his foundation from a library. That's where he spent the majority of his time. So
yeah, I mean, it's a perfect place to be for every person from all walks of life. If you're rich, if you're poor, if you're introverted, if you're extroverted, if you suffer from mental health, if you have anxiety, depression, the library is a place where you can go and you can just be, you can just exist. In most libraries, you don't even need a library card to be there. You can just walk in, sit down, you can walk around, touch the books, like you're saying, have that physical presence with the books, or you can just look and find something new. So many people make friends at their local library just from being there. People use library for meeting rooms, so I totally get what James Baldwin did.
And see what I meant, citizens of Yoga Nation, about his infectious personality?
It's all around us. That's it. That's what the library does. I'm a very introverted, quiet person, but when start talking about libraries and literacy, something happens where I'm just like, there's that extroverted part of me. It's the it's the library come flooding in.
Well, do you think social media is the enemy of a library?
That's a good question. I don't think I've ever thought about it like that, but I think my direct answer would be no, it's not. Just because social media is I've learned it's such a valuable tool for libraries. I kind of like I mean I've been on social media since I was 13, 14 years old. But when I started doing it on social media for libraries, I just realized that like the book talk, bookstagram, TikTok, and Instagram for book lovers, bookworms, book dragons. I realized that, you know what, this is where everyone's at. Everyone's on the internet, in some form or passion. The various niches, the various corners of the internet, and just like how do we reach those corners, and how do we remind them of the library? And then I realized it was right there. Just start talking about the library, and I think I love it. I think I love it so much that that's the way it worked. And I've met so many more library workers, librarians, literacy experts who are like, yes, we can use social media, we can use these different platforms as a tool to reach people and let them know that the library is still relevant. It's still here. So I think honestly, social media is a way we remind people that libraries are free. You can go get you can go get a library card. You can borrow books. You can borrow movies. You can borrow music. You can come to these programs, and the way we're reminding them is through social media, because so many people have reached out to me and said, "I forgot how much I love the library. I forgot what my local librarian did for me in my life. I forgot that I need to bring my family to the library so they can experience that joy that they had as library kids, so that their library kids can be joyful library kids." And I think that's all happening through social media, because we're all there in that shared internet space, just as tired, exhausted adults and kids and human beings. And we're like, yes, social media, libraries too. Libraries are everywhere, and that includes social media.
Well, also for me, every time I go into my public library, I just get that sense of simplicity, right? I mean, the world could be on fire. I mean, not metaphorically, of course, but just there's that joy and just the simplicity of just sitting down, enjoying a book. And by the way, a lot of credit goes to our state, local, and federal governments who, you know, pump money into making sure that libraries are still relevant.
It is, and we need even more funding to be more relevant, to do more and more for more and more people, so that library workers who are honestly burnt out from various forms of life, mental health struggles, and just being human beings, need the funding, need the salaries that they deserve as library workers. Library workers deserve everything good, and also just the means to be able to have better library buildings that actually convince people that they're not just welcome at their local library, but they belong in the library. Funding to help with accessibility so that people with wheelchairs can enter the library, more ramps and other services to be able to reach more communities who speak different languages, all these tools to reach people, to teach people, and encourage people, that their local library is a place where they can become the best versions of themselves.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think architecture also plays a role in that, in the sense that how things are laid out, space wise, the amount of natural light that comes in.
And you know what I love too? I don't know if you've gotten a chance to visit libraries all over the nation, all over the world. I haven't done it all over the world.
Just the National Library in DC, and then, but yeah, but I'm curious where this is going now.
There's some people, no, but more and more of them are becoming. I mean, I wouldn't say more beautiful, but like they're really, really cool. I mean, I've always thought libraries were the coolest place in the world, but they're full of color. They're not all beige anymore. They're full of colorful walls, colorful murals, different fun little furniture. They're just exciting. Like libraries are like, you know what? This is what you're saying. This is architecture saying yes. We want more light. We want plants. We want bushes. We want colorful art on the walls to make people feel comfortable and relax and want to keep coming back to these institutions.
Well, and just a sidebar topic, I mean, you have over 2 million followers across, again, all social media platforms. And you mentioned in our pre planning call about some of the messages that you have, they accuse you of toxic positivity. Could you describe that? And I guess, yeah, could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, I'll do the best I can. I myself don't know what toxic positivity really is. I think I'm a fan of just all positivity. We live in such a dark, wicked world that any form of positivity that we can pursue is something that I'm trying to find with my own struggles. I think what people mean when they talk about toxic positivity is just like Like no matter what, I'm gonna be positive. I'm gonna find happiness, even if it's not real. Even if it's just saying like, you know what, no matter what, this is good, this is joyful. Um, and what I think it really breaks down to is it just kind of when people talk about toxic positivity, they're like, okay, but do you not believe in people having bad days? Are you saying it's not okay to feel down in the dumps? I think that's what people think. I think toxic positivity. They think I'm saying, by no means can you have a bad day because you have this to be happy about. You have this to be joyful about. And my message
Things to be grateful, right?
yes, but yeah, but you know what? But yeah, being grateful, being thankful. But I think in being grateful and being thankful, my messages, I hope, are the opposite of toxic positivity, where I'm trying to convince people to pursue joy, pursue kindness, pursue trying to get okay because I have many days where I'm not okay. I'm 34 years old and I've never had 24 consecutive hours of joy. I'm still trying. So my messages are always talking about it's okay to not be okay, and how are we getting to okay together? How are we surviving 24 hours at a time? How are we getting to tomorrow? So yes, my message is positive because I'm talking about libraries. I'm talking about literacy, trying to convince people to get library cards to visit their local library. I'm also trying to convince people that it is okay to not be okay, and you can still pursue all those things. You can have a bad day. You can struggle. You can be just laying down on your couch, laying down in your bed for 24 hours, and I'm okay with that. That is one way to have an adventure, to make it through the day, and it may not be the most joyful, the happiest experience, but you're still doing what you have to do. And I think that's what I'm trying.
Do you think it's the fear of being judged?
It very much is. I think that's just a very human response, and I think that's a lot of what it is. And honestly, I think when people talk about toxic positivity, when they talk about the response to me on social media, maybe not they're not my biggest fans, and that's quite okay. There's a lot of people in the world. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting a bunch of people who have been very kind to me, and just saying, you know what, this is what we're trying to. This is all that we're trying to do. So people, yeah, I think people honestly, they're just having bad days themselves. They don't know what to do. They have no idea how to get to that next day themselves. So perhaps they're taking it out on me, on people who have positivity like myself. I have no idea, but you know what? I think for me, like maybe one day they're gonna need my messages of being obsessed with library, being obsessed with literacy, and trying to talk about mental health to help normalize the conversation, like so many wonderful people are. I'm not the only person doing what I'm doing. I just get very excited about all the things that I love to talk about. And I think
Well, how do you define mental health from your perspective? I mean, again, you're a strong advocate from what you post and your blogs and your talks.
Well, for me, I think when I talk about mental health, I'm talking about prioritizing mental health. So prioritizing taking care of your mind just as much as your body is mental health to me. It's saying yes, my brain. I need to treat my brain as kindly as possible. And I don't know. I personally think I unfortunately am always going to have struggles with anxiety and depression and the such. But I'm just trying to keep it at bay so that maybe one day I can just talk about these things and say, hey, somehow I figured out how to master my anxiety. I have mastered my mental health. And if I can help people in turn, I would love to. So I don't know if that answers the question, what is mental health? But that's kind of my TED Talk 2 minute spiel of what mental health is.
Yeah, and I guess part of it is generational, right? I mean, I am Gen X. You are a generation younger than me, and so for me, growing up, yes, of course, we all have anxiety. I mean, but not to say that I particularly mastered it in a way, but when it comes to say name calling, there's a saying. I'm not sure if you've heard the phrase. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. But I don't know. It's just I hear a lot of this discussion of mental health, and Michael, you and I talked about this, but it's more the mental growth aspect that everyone, no matter what age, ethnicity, background, profession, we all strive to do. So it's more around the areas of mental growth, as well as not only feeding your mind, but it's also feeding your body and feeding your soul.
It is. No, that's a great way to describe it. I love that you mentioned it being generational because even for me, us being from different generations, I still grew up when mental health was still heavily stigmatized. I'm black, Mexican, and white. Two of those cultures have kind of had like a history of not necessarily ignoring mental health, but definitely like it's not. They don't recognize it as real as it is. They don't recognize it as a problem. that it can be. I think it's more so when I grew up, it was more so like, oh, it's all in your head, the man up sort of mentality. Um,
Yeah, I was I was gonna say grow a pair, but you had the G-rated version of it.
Yeah, exactly. No, yes, that's the third one. Yeah, that's that. No, that's what I was told too. But I think it's moving forward. Even like I have so many conversations with people about mental health and talking about the generational gap. I refer to sometimes to my mental health, to my struggles, as like working on my mentals. And for some generations, I think I said that on Facebook or somewhere, some other social media platform. And someone talked about how like that term mentals is derogatory towards mental health because of when they grew up. The word like mentals was talking about being confined to a mental institution. So that's something like, you know what? I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize that people take offense to it being called that. That's me learning from other generations, and also other generations realizing that people my age and so forth, we call that trying to deal with our own mental health struggles, trying to not necessarily dark humor, but just trying to be like, oh yeah, this is kind of like the funny spin that we can talk about it, so that we can have these open conversations, and trying to move forward, trying to better ourselves through conversation, through shared experience.
Do you see that helping? Again, this collective, talking it out.
It is, you know, I'm lucky enough to go around the United States visiting libraries, talking to library conferences, early education conferences, and mental health conferences. And every time I talk with people, they always mention how they love that they can talk about their anxiety, they can talk about their depression, their bipolar disorder, their PTSD, postpartum, and so on. And I think what's important is that they're so happy that they're relieved they can talk about it. That's what it is. It's not just talking about it with a therapist, it's talking about it with friends, with families, having a shared mental health check network where you can say, I'm having a bad day, and this is why. And even if your particular friend doesn't have the same brand of anxiety, it's the same brand of depression that you do, you at least are willing to have a conversation. Both of you are willing to learn from one another. I think so many people are just like, they're relieved. They're like, oh, I can admit it. I don't have to hide my mental health struggles. I don't have to mask them. I can talk about them openly, and people aren't going to judge me. They're not going to bully me. They're not going to belittle me. They're going to say, it is very, very real what's happening to you. How can we help one another out through conversations? And sometimes helping is just listening.
Yeah, and I guess it's a very, I'm not going to say therapeutic, it's beyond therapy, but it's just that state of mind where it's releasing that pressure cooker that's to hold things inside of you, and that prevents you become the better version of yourself, in my opinion.
Totally agree.
Getting back to the toxic positivity, I just the comment that I just wanted to make here is this, I believe, is an element of I would consider cyberbullying. How do you address that yourself? Do you ignore it? Do you, or what do you do there? Because again, with a lot of and technology, as we talk about mental health and mental growth, the hateful comments that people have against one another, it's so easy to do that. With zeros and ones as you're typing, you're not necessarily seeing the person. So I'm just trying to figure out, how with your energy, right, that you exude, um, that how do you deal with the cyberbullying that may or may not affect you?
Yeah, you know what? It's really difficult. I think it's more difficult than we as a society want to let on. I like that you had mentioned sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me, which is something I think many of our grown ups, our parents taught us growing up. But I think it's so interesting because words really are
Both hands raised.
words really are hurtful. Words, it's like, yes, that hurts. That's, yeah, sticks and stones, they hurt differently, but words still hurt. Words have a lot of power. Um, Sometimes people
And words have energy.
they do. Sometimes on people's worst day, they use very, very mean words that they wouldn't use on their best day or their medium sized day. But for me, I think I've had, I think, about two very public experiences with cyberbullying from people talking about me. And it's really hard because I think people don't realize that those moments of negative comments, negative things, they happen so often. I think I'm regarded as like a wholesome, um, kind, friendly sort of individual, and that's what I try. That's what I try to be. But I still receive a lot of negativity. I read a lot of negative comments. I try not to read comments any longer. A lot of my friends are like, "Nope, you're not allowed to read the comments. Yeah, you just post and forget it." And that's why I try my best to do. But I mean, sometimes things still people. Negative things will still make their way back to me. And for me, because I know like a lot of different people view the videos, the posts that I create, that some of them are library kids. So each time I've talked about cyberbullying, I try to say, you know what? What if the library kids see what this person says? What if their library grown-ups need to talk about them with what was said about me? So each time I publicly address cyberbullying, it's been because someone had brought it to my attention that their library kid came across, and I said, you know what? This is what I think 8-year-old library kid me would have needed to hear, would have wanted a person like myself in that content saying. So I'm just trying to do my best to let them know that yes, it is hurtful. Cyberbullying does hurt. It is bullying. It is not a fun experience, but I personally, I like to say, you know what? A lot of people consider themselves to be professional trolls. They're on social media trying to bring people down. Unfortunately, that's what's fun to them. And just trying to say, you know what? Yes, your words, energy. You use the word energy. Your words have energy. They have so much negativity. Um, but then I think that, again, in cyberbullying, there's so much more positivity on the internet than negativity. The negativity is so very loud. Like the volume is like all the way up on negativity, and it's very low on positivity. And I say, you know what? How do we turn up the volume on positivity, on those kind comments, on those friendly ones, the ones saying yes. Thank you for being here. Thank you for making what you're making. Thank you for saying what you said. I think that's really what I've tried to do when it comes to cyberbullying, is just try to say
And I would even take that one step further, Michael, and that is kindness is its own superpower.
I'd agree. I'm a big fan of kindness and kind people. They mean the world to me. I've been lucky enough to be surrounded by so many kind people all my life. So as much as I talk about joy and library joy, I'm just as much all about kindness.
Right, absolutely. Speaking of kindness, some of your most influential people that you referenced, and I'd like to hear your story about your partnership with PBS. But Mr. Rogers and Bob Ross, I consider the Mount Rushmore of PBS icons.
I'd agree.
What are their timeless messages that apply today?
Yeah, you know what? I would also.
And and then we need to backtrack to help the younger citizens of Yoga Nation understand who Mr. Rogers and Bob Ross are. So maybe you can just give that quick little bio.
Yeah, you know what? I could do my best, and I would also add Levar Burton to the people icons as well. Mr. Rogers was Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, which I think a lot of your younger viewers would probably know who Daniel Tiger is on PBS. Daniel Tiger was Mr. Rogers' very good friend on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Mr. Rogers, Fred Rogers, just an incredible human being. I consider him the kindest person who ever lived, and he just taught us different messages every single day on his television show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We were all neighbors together with Mr. Rogers. He would put on his cardigan, change his shoes, and then just infect us with his incredible personality and phenomenal kindness. Um, Bob Ross was an extraordinary painter who believed that no one could make mistakes. Just happy little trees. There were everything was a happy little accident, and which was very funny from Bob Ross because he was such an incredible painter. So I very rarely saw any painting mistakes that Bob Ross made, but still very similar. Just a very calm voice man, very soothing, incredible afro. I've been honored to I've dressed like Bob Ross several times. uh, he also had a pet squirrel, Peapod, the PBS Bob Ross lore. And then LeVar Burton, extraordinary author, actor, writer, so many things, famous in Star Trek and Roots, but also yes, but also Reading Rainbow, which is to me the biggest thing that LeVar Burton's ever done.
Yeah, that's how I grew up as well. So
Just truly just encouraging people to read so often. You just would see LeVar Burton on your screen, and he was just so happy about reading books to you. There were kid book reviews. He was going all over the world, just sharing bookish experiences, and he would have an adventure that suited those experiences. So those three, I mean, I love them so much. I didn't get to watch too much TV as a kid, but I was always out biking with my friends, getting into mischief
and being at the library.
as kids do. Yeah, being in the library, and it was the three of them. Honestly, I mean others too, but the three of them watching them on television was just so great. I've always tried to emulate their kindness, their incredible just spirits, and just yeah. I mean,
Did any of them have like a foundational theme?
I think kindness was a foundational theme. It's just trying to be just the kings of kindness without trying to be the kings of kindness. And they all did it in their own way. I think Mr. Rogers was just directly about kindness. I would say Bob Ross did it through painting, and then LeVar Burton did it through books and literacy and just general encouragement.
Yeah, that is so true. Um, do you think it's lost in today's tech-driven social media world?
You know what? I think it was, but I think it's starting to. Well, you know what? I think it just didn't exist the same way because we who kind of were on social media didn't realize what it could be, what could be done. But I think I look at people like Miss Rachel, who's in the same vein as Mr. Rogers and LeVar Burton and Bob Ross. I think Steve Burns, who was the star of Blue's Clues, is another person who just is doing incredible things just like they did. He just comes on there, and he just reminds us of like, oh man, thank you, Steve. I needed you to just listen. Like he can just be on the screen and just his face alone, you're like, oh, I'm okay. And a person like Elise Myers who comes on and just tells stories to people on social media, funny stories from everyday life. So I think honestly, I think Mr. Rogers, LeVar Burton, and Bob Ross will always be the originators, the kings, the extraordinary people of what they did. But I think people are realizing that social media, there is so much room for positivity and for enthusiasm on these various platforms. It doesn't just have to be jokes and memes, which I'm all about. I love those. That's my algorithm on a lot of platforms when I watch, but there's also room in people's algorithms in their life for kindness and encouragement and joy on social media too.
And unfortunately, fortunately, it's not sensationalism, which I think that gets drowned in all of the social media messages that you see here today. But I've always believed that the answers are within ourselves, and so whether you find that meaning in a library, in a book, certainly the open discussion we're having about mental health and mental growth, I think all of that hopefully can translate to a person that I always like to say is listening in the quiet corner of their room, reflecting on this message.
Exactly. I love that. You find it within yourself. And just like for me, I happen to have library joy, but whatever your version of joy is, that's the perfect thing for you to pursue, to keep yourself going. Like you said, in the depths, in the darkness of your room, you can find that light. You can find that next 24 hours and keep on making it into that next day. So you can keep on finding your joy, whatever that may be.
And on that note, that is a beautiful segment to say, Mychal, thank you kindly for coming on to the podcast. It's been a blessing. And, I guess my ending comment is rather than hit the like and subscribe, if you happen to find a message that has resonated from what Mychal shared, please share this to a friend, a family member, person you care about, because that's how we will make this Yoga Nation platform, which is not just me, it's all of us together. So thank you for listening.